Mile 8, I want to be at there 1. I want to be there at 1:31:36. 1 hour, 31 minutes, 36 seconds. This is where guys who used to be fast say, wow, I remember when I'd be done with the half marathon by now. Hey, you're that Galloway customized coach guy, right?
Hi, I'm Chris Twiggs, Chief Training Officer for Galloway Training and coach of Galloway Customized Training Plans.
Yeah, great. So I've always had a question about that run walk thing.
Sure, how can I help?
So if I'm going for a POT, how fast do I have to run?
Well, if you're talking about getting a proof of time for a Run Disney race, it depends on the distance you're running. Right now, the half marathon time needed is 2.5 hours. So if you're running a half for a POT, you'd need to average 11 minutes and 27 seconds per mile.
Yeah, so how fast do you need to run for that?
11 minutes, 27 seconds per mile.
But you have to run faster than that because you're walking a bunch, right?
Oh, I see what you're asking. Yes, you'll run a bit faster when you're running.
So how much faster?
A bit faster. It depends.
It depends?
It depends.
It depends on what?
It depends on how fast you walk, how fast you weave around other runners, how congested the water stops are, and how long you take to accelerate from walking to running and decelerate from running to walking. All of those things factor into how fast you'll need to run to maintain the average pace you want for your race.
Yeah, so I walk at 15 minutes per mile, so how about that?
That's a very fast walk.
Well, I have to get from rope drop to rise of the resistance, so...
Yeah, I get it. But even if you can maintain that walking pace for every walk break of the half marathon, there's still all those other factors to consider.
Okay, so how do your pacers know what they're doing to get people to the finish line on pace?
Well, I'll show you. So I have with me one of the flags that we use for pacing at Disney and the other races that we pace. It has the finish time on there. It has our logo, which as you can see, our logo has changed. It has pacer. And then down here, it has a pace strip. And this pace strip is really important because it tells the pacer what time to be at each of those mile markers in elapsed time, right? So I didn't want to carry this when I was doing this experiment because it would draw a little bit of attention. So instead, I just printed one out and I carried it with me, put it in a Ziploc and carried it with me because if I didn't put it in a Ziploc, it would be a mess. And what this tells me is that for the proof of time that we were going for 2 hours, 30 minutes for the half marathon, we wanted to hit 11 minutes, 27 seconds per mile. But it's a lot more than that. If all I knew was that I had to be 11:27 per mile, when I get to mile 2, if I had been off by a few seconds in mile 1 and I run mile 2 at 11:27, I'm still off by those seconds that I missed in the first mile. And if I'm off again in the second mile and I run 11:27 for the third mile, great, I get it right, but I'm still off by the seconds that I missed for the first couple. So I really have to know not just what is the average pace I want to hit, I have to know what is the elapsed time I need to be at each of those mile markers. And then, more than that, I need to pay attention when I'm running and I'm looking at my watch. What I really care about is that elapsed time. Now, it's going to show me distance and it's going to show me average pace, but anything more than that is really useless information in terms of being able to hit my pace. And even those things can be distracting because when this says I've gone 13.1 miles, I can't just stop and say, great, I ran a half marathon. Because if I'm not at the actual finish line, it doesn't count, right? And so every mile I'm checking to see, well, what is the time at the actual mile marker? Not what pace did this say I went, not how far does this say I went. Now I can use the pace that this says I'm going and the time or the distance that it says I've gone. I can use those things to help me, but I have to trust that the mile markers are in the right place. So we have to trust that the course is measured properly. And if we get to a mile marker and our watch says that it took us 1.05 miles to get there, guess what? We probably weaved a little bit. Maybe we didn't run the tangents. Maybe the GPS is off, and sometimes the GPS can get really far off. So that's why I use two different watches for this, so that I could see by how much is a GPS watch off. The two watches, are they in sync with each other, or are they both off? And if they're both off, by how much? By no means do I think that this experiment showed me that the Coros or the Apple Watch was more accurate than the other. I think if anything, it showed that we really do have to pay attention to the mile marks. Let's take a look at how it all went.
So I am out for a walk with my wheel, as one does. Why am I doing that? I am doing that because I want to know exactly how far a tenth of a mile, a half a mile, 1 mile, 2 miles, and 3 miles are from my house. But Coach, I hear you say, you've got a GPS watch. You've got a couple of GPS watches. Not only that, but you've got a car. You just drive it out. Well, guess what? When races are being measured officially for certification, they can't use a car, they can't use GPS, they have to use a wheel just like this. Now, usually the counter like this, the counter that's on this wheel is attached to a bicycle, and what they do is they calibrate the bicycle to one of these wheels. They go out to a course that has been measured with a wheel, and they ride it on their bike that has the counter on it, and they have to get it exactly the same. And if, sometimes it means they've got to increase the air pressure in the tire, decrease the air pressure in a tire, do some other little things, because weather obviously has an impact on that stuff. So I'm going to measure this out like this so that I know for sure exactly where those marks are. Then I'm going to run a half marathon distance, not an official half marathon, but I'm going to run a half marathon distance that is exact based on this info. Now, again, if you're running a real half marathon, there's actually a slight difference between the true distance and the measured half marathon, called a short course adjustment factor. I think that's what it's called. And what that means is they add in just a little bit extra. It's not much. I mean, it's just a few feet, but they add in just a little bit extra just in case the course was somehow, somewhere along the way, was shorter than they thought. And the reason they do that is so that if there is a record and that record needs to get certified and it's remeasured to certify that distance for the record, you would hate for it to come up short, right? There was also a world record that was set, I want to say it was Camille Herron last year. I can look that up. I think it was Camille Herron supposedly broke her own world record on a loop course. And when it was remeasured later, it turned out that it was slightly short. And of course, on a loop course, that's a big deal, because if you're a foot short every loop and it's 100 loops, you're 100 feet short, which is significant, right? If the record breaking wasn't by much. So they always add in that little bit extra so that if it's remeasured, even if it was short by a tiny bit, if they measured it long on purpose a little bit, then you're okay. So what am I going to do with this information? I'm going to be able to run exactly 13.1 miles because I'll have these marks, but I'm also going to wear 2 GPS watches. I'll wear my Apple Watch, which is the one I run with most of the time, and I will wear my Coros. Why do I want to do this? I want to demonstrate that when we are pacing a race or running a race and we're trying to run even splits, you can't do it by your watch. You can't. I think what you're going to see is that the two watches will not agree with each other. I don't know how far off they're going to be, but when I've paced races, marathons, and wearing both of those watches, I have seen those be off by a couple of tenths per mile, or a couple of tenths of a mile, not tenths per mile, but a couple of tenths of a mile by the end of that marathon. All right, I'm getting a little bit later start this morning than what I wanted. But I've got my starting line over there. I've got my Coros watch. I've got my Galloway timer. I've got my Apple Watch. I've got my pace band. So let's find out what happens when I run a half marathon that has been measured by a wheel using two different GPS devices, trying to stay exactly on pace for a Disney proof of time 2.5 hour half marathon. So I am trying to run. I am just about to the 1 mile mark. According to my Coros, I should hit it maybe 2 seconds fast. We'll find out if that's true. I need to hit that mark at 11:27. And let's see, 37 seconds to the walk break. I'm not going to hit a walk break before I get there. The walk will be just after. 11:01. Oh, I'm going to be a little bit faster than I thought. Let's see here. It's this bush right here. Hit at 11:12. So, and right there, the Coros buzzed, and I just felt my Apple Watch buzz. So those both agree that I am past a mile, although it feels like both of those buzzed slightly after I hit the actual physical mile mark, which tells me if that trend continues, my watches are going to say that I haven't gone as far as I really will go. We'll see if that keeps up, if the watches keep being behind. So hit that mark just a little bit fast. It's always about where the walk breaks come. You notice I hit it in the middle of a run. If the walk break had come just before that, I probably would have hit it right on. We'll find out when we get to the 2 mile. I'm looking for 22 minutes, 54 seconds at mile 2, which I know is a no parking sign up here. 22:54. 22:53. Hey, that's only 1 second off. So I've still got a little ways, about a quarter mile before I hit mile 3, but seeing an interesting thing between my two watches. Right now, my Coros says my average pace is 11:30, which would mean I'm going to be a little slow at mile 3. My Apple Watch says my average pace is 11:27, which means I'd be dead on where I need to be. So I'm seeing some separation between the two between the two GPS watches. And this will be fun to see where we are at mile 3, because we know mile 3 is exactly 3 miles from where I started, because I measured it out with a wheel. So let's see what happens. Okay, I'm looking for 34:21. It's this little crack in the road right across from this no parking sign I see up here. Different no parking sign than the 2 mile one. 34:21 I want. 34:15 right there. My Apple Watch already thinks I hit it. My Coros already thinks I hit it. Here's the crack in the road. 34:26. I was 5 seconds slow, even though both my Apple Watch and my Coros thought that I'd already hit it. Interesting. 45:50. 2 seconds slow. Coros says I just hit 5, and now I really hit 5 at 57:12. So 3 seconds faster than I needed to be there. Here's the mark right here. Oh, Koros hit it. Auto walk break. So 1:08:32. So 10 seconds. So I was interesting. So I was 5 seconds faster than average in mile 5. And so I was still, what that means is I ran mile 6 exactly the same pace I ran mile 5. So I picked up another 5 seconds. Okay, here is the 7-mile mark. 1:20:07. 2 seconds. Boy, that Koros was right on. Okay, Koros, I'm impressed. I'm impressed. Okay, so give you a little insight on what I'm doing right now. I noticed that my Koros is pretty accurate today. So I'm trying while I'm running to see that average pace get down to about 11:26. And now I'm walking, it's just gone to 11:27, which is be exactly what I want it to be for that 2.5 hour half marathon. So I think what I'll do, just to show you how I would do it if I didn't have the Koros, is I'll take a look at what, if I can hit mile 8 right on, I'll then take a look at what my Apple Watch average is to that point, and I'll use it for the next mile or so in the same way. Yeah, and now while I'm running, that average pace on the Koros is back to 11:26. This is where guys who used to be fast say, wow, I remember when I'd be done with the half marathon by now. Koros says that was the mark, but it wasn't really. It was a little early. 1:31:27. So 9 seconds fast. Yep. Oh, Koros says that was it, but really, this is it. 1:42:56. Oh, and so I was 7 seconds fast, even though I slowed down my average by a second, according to my Apple Watch. So again, I want to hit it at 1:54:30. Ooh, I'm gonna be slow. Yep. Actually, Koros at 1:54:30. Koros just said that was my mile mark, but it wasn't. This is my mile mark, 1:54:41. So somehow I'm 11 seconds slow, and also my Koros beeped at me 11 seconds early. Interesting. All right, Koros just beeped at me, said that I'm at 11 miles. I'm not. I see the bush that is 11 miles right up here. I want to be there at 2:05:57, 2:05:54. So 3 seconds off, 3 seconds fast. Pretty good. Here we go, see you at 12. So why is mile marker 12 so important? Well, because a lot of half marathons either don't have a mile 13 marker, or if they do, obviously it's very close to the finish line. So it's hard to make adjustments at that point. So you really need to get things dialed in by mile 12. There's Koros telling me I hit mile 12. Here's the real mile 12. I want to be 2:17:24. I'm 2:17:10. Oh my gosh. Why was I so early? Oh boy, oh boy. So many times we've come into the last mile of a race, my pace partner and I, or even me by myself, just leading a group. And you've got to make this adjustment like I have to do right here. I've got to slow it down by 14 seconds. That's significant. That's significant. Was I really 14? I wasn't. Was I 14 under? Oh gosh, I guess I was. So, of course, I was coming up on a walk break, so that's part of it. I was running instead of walking. So now the trick is to slow it down, but only by the right amount, right? Because if I slow it down by too much, then I'm over my time. I don't want to be over my time. I'd rather be under my time up to 30 seconds than over my time at all. All right. Next time I see you, it'll be crossing 13 and going to the finish line. 2:28. 51. Oh my gosh, I hit it exactly. Oh, that's fantastic. Ha! Mile 13. Hit it exactly. Yes. All right. Let's find that 13.1 mile marker. I want to hit that 2.5 hours. Whew. Here it comes. Oh, oh, oh. I think I'm gonna get it. I think I'm gonna get it. Oh, oh. Saved by the walk break. Oh my gosh, this is perfect. Yes. 20 seconds. I'm gonna hit it. Ha! Yeah. And there it is.
So when we take a look at the data from the Coros and the Apple Watch and we compare that to what actually happened out there, what do we see? In terms of overall stats, the Coros says that I ran 13.12 miles, so pretty close to the 13.10 that I actually ran. It says that I did this in 2 hours, 30 minutes, 1 second. So that 1 second obviously was how long it took me to hit the stop on the watch. And the average pace was 11 minutes, 26 seconds. So remember, 11:27 is what we actually needed. So it's pretty darn close, right? But had I averaged, according to the Coros, 11:27, slowed down by a second per mile on this, I would have been at least 13 seconds over. So instead of 2:30:01, it would have been 2:30:14, which, as the pace coordinator, if I had gone over by 14 seconds, I would tell that pacer, not so good, right? So let's take a look at what the Apple Watch stats said for the same run. Apple Watch said that I ran 13.19 miles, so almost a tenth of a mile further than I actually went. And it says I did this in 2 hours, 30 minutes, 2 seconds. So the 2 seconds are obviously what it took me to hit pause or hit stop on the watch. The average pace that it says I ran was 11 minutes, 22 seconds, 11:22. So a full 5 seconds per mile faster than what I actually averaged. And if I were to slow down by 5 seconds to get my watch to hit the average that I thought that I needed, or that I really did need, but if I slowed down by those 5 seconds, well over a minute difference, right? Which means I really would have messed up as a pacer. We're targeting up to 30 seconds under, but never over. So it's a good thing I wasn't using either of these watches alone to hit my pace, but that instead I actually knew what my times needed to be at the mile marks and was able to adjust as I went. So you see, it's all about knowing what time you need to be at the mile marks, then adjusting the run pace, the walk pace, or both to target the overall pace you want to hit. And even then, it's not really about the pace, it's about the finish time.
Yeah. So how fast do I need to run?
30 seconds faster.
Yeah, that's about what I figured.